Welcome to Stacktastic, the weekly web show for the avid comic book reader and those who aspire to become so. Now, if you watch my other YouTube channel, Beyond the Trailer, you might have noticed the battle that sprung up last week when I said the latest Man of Steel trailer wasn't to my liking. And while I was looking over the comments, I found it interesting that there's still much debate over which is the character's mask, Clark Kent or Superman. So today I thought I'd delve into that a little further, plus as always my recommendations of what comics to pick up or download this week. And hey Canada! I'll be at the Calgary Expo this Friday and Saturday, April 26th and 27th. I'll be doing a signing at the Boom Studios booth both days, plus appearing on their panel on Saturday at 1 p.m. So please stop by and say hi. Now let's get started. In my review of the latest Man of Steel trailer, I said that I've always felt that while Batman was the true identity and Bruce Wayne the mask, Superman was the opposite. Clark Kent was the true identity while Superman was the mask. And that apparently annoyed a lot of you, while I have to say the opposite theory annoys me. So let's discuss. First, let's go with the theory that's apparently being used in Man of Steel, where Superman, aka Kal-El, is the character's true identity, while Clark Kent is the mask. This theory was outlined in great detail in Kill Bill and has also been used sometimes in the comics. For instance, in All-Star Superman, Grant Morrison essentially turned being Clark Kent into a literal clown act. And when you consider that Clark Kent wears glasses that Superman doesn't need, it's a reasonable argument that those glasses, and thus the persona that goes along with them, is the mask. From what I've been able to glean from the comments to my trailer review, Clark Kent is the mask appeals to you as you feel it's Kal-El's interpretation of humanity. Again, like with Morrison, performance art. This theory also makes the character more of a loner, removed from humanity and judging it as an outsider. Plus, it emphasizes his alien origins. Krypton and Jor-El become a much bigger and more important part of the Superman mythos with the Clark Kent mask theory, and Superman as God, or a god, also comes into play. Furthermore, this theory makes Superman more of a full-fledged superhero, as that is his default setting, so to speak. Now, perhaps that's the reason this theory doesn't appeal to me, as I've always been drawn to the more realistic characters in comics, who are often the supporting players. Lois Lane, Alfred, Commissioner Gordon, and in some ways, Clark Kent. Many of you have said that Man of Steel is offering a more realistic take on Superman, but from what perspective? Many of your comments discuss that realistically, humanity would perceive such a person with awesome powers as a god, and that's true, but that's looking at the character from the outside in. I'm much more interested in looking at the character from the inside out. Let's consider the reality of that. Our personalities are formed starting at birth and as children, and during that time period, all that exists is Clark Kent. Jonathan and Martha don't tell him about his alien origins until his powers manifest, which is as a teenager. So just like any adopted child, while his origins might fascinate him, they are alien to him, in this case, literally. That's why I see the character as a salt-of-the-earth Kansas farm boy with middle American values that suddenly discovers he can do extraordinary things. To me, Clark Kent is that quiet yet popular guy in high school who steps in to protect someone who's being bullied. With his powers as an adult, he can just take on bigger bullies, which is why Lex Luthor, the slick big city carpetbagger, is such a perfect villain for him. And while some of you say that doesn't interest you, which by the way is dismissive of an entire way of life that's still thriving in the United States and many farming communities the world over, that's the character, at least in the Superman stories that I enjoy. Yet there are plenty of Superman stories which take the other theory which you enjoy. And so perhaps that's the bigger problem, that DC has failed to definitively define the character. In comparison, the basic principles of Batman have remained in black and white consistently throughout the character's history. Maybe Man of Steel will set a new foundation for Superman, one that the upcoming Superman Unchained will hopefully build upon instead of contrast. Because in the end, I think we can all agree that the best thing for the character would be to pick a single theory and stick with it, even if that choice annoys half of us. Not a ton of comics worth highlighting this week, so in addition to new comics, I'm also going to recommend some older comics that I think are worth doubling back for. First, the newbies. Image Comics is set to make headlines once again with another killer creative team, this time Mark Millar and Frank Quitely with Jupiter's Legacy. Even if Millar's writing has become a bit predictable at this point, Quitely's amazing art should freshen it up a bit. Then if you're a Gambit and Rogue fan, one of the X-Men's hottest couples reunites this week in Gambit number 11. Like the previous recommendation, James Asmus's writing might be hit or miss, but Clayman's art is always on target. Then over at Marvel, the publisher's Cosmic Comics continue to push the Marvel Cinematic Universe's agenda, as the Badoon from the Avengers movie show up in issue 2 of Guardians of the Galaxy. I wasn't thrilled with the first issue, but like I also said, this title ties in so heavily with the movies, I'm not ready to give up on it yet. Now let's move on to some golden oldies. While I'm not enjoying the main event so much, it was very nice to see the Invisible Woman in the spotlight in last week's Wolverine and the X-Men Age of Ultron tie-in. Likewise, while Wonder Woman's title slowed down a bit after its debut, things are really picking up speed now, with a great scene last week involving Orion that pretty much becomes an instant classic. Finally, I highly recommend Polarity #1 from Boom Studios. The comic is truly unique both in terms of writing and visuals, and while I'm not sure where it's going, so far I'm really enjoying the ride. And that's this week's Stacktastic. I'm Grace Randolph for Think About the Ink and hope to see you back on Friday for Between the Pages. Until then, happy reading.